Hey guys, I'm Gautam Gali, Solutions Engineer with OvalEdge. In today's LinkedIn Live, we'll discuss data governance maturity with Sharad Varshney, CEO and founder of OvalEdge. If you are a governance manager or a data professional or a consultant trying to track the progress of the data governance program, then this is the place to be. We also have many exciting resources for you. You can also post your questions in the comments. So, hey, hi, Sharad. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're excited because we have a lot of questions for you.
Hey Gautam, yeah, this is really a fun session. I love to talk about data governance maturity, and I'm glad that we are having this session to discuss more deeper into this topic today.
Absolutely. So, let's get started. What is data governance maturity and why is it used?
That's a profound question if you think about it. Um, so it started where let's do data governance. Companies are organizing that, hey, let's do data governance because of compliances reasons, mostly like banking, utilities, mostly the banking side of the financial companies. They had a lot of regulations in place, data regulations. Their reporting need to be genuine, authentic, as well as all the uh, companies which is comply with the SOX laws, they also need to have their reporting compliant, right? So in order to do this, they need to create a framework for data governance, and that's where in order to implement the data governance, they said, okay, where we are really, let's understand it, and how do we are maturing it. So those are the reason the data governance maturity model was evolved and start coming up in this place. And it's basically a tool to measure the basically where you are in terms of your journey of data governance. Maybe a certain part what happens is that people are like, oh, we are not doing data governance, but maybe you are doing it, you're not knowing it that you are doing it, right? A lot of companies I have seen is that they have quite a big program in place, and they do not realize that they have a program in place already. So they realize that they do have a data governance program, but they don't call it data governance program. So it's now formalizing it, it's creating this framework. This framework is there to measure it and kind of then evolve from it. So that's what the data governance maturity model is. And that's basically maturity is, and then kind of help you understand the where you are and help you track the progress of the governance program you have in your organization.
Got it. That makes sense. So, what you're saying is that it evolved as a compliance requirement because people want to understand where their governance program is. And you're also saying that it helps you track the progress of your governance program, right?
Yes,
Um,
it's basically help you track.
Got it. So again, different companies define data governance differently. I know in OvalEdge we follow a certain philosophy. Do you want to expand on what data governance means at OvalEdge?
Yeah. So the main thing is data governance started because of the compliance reason, but this is the same reason people are using for the business to build the trust in the company. Like compliance reason, they started that people can trust the report. Like for example, if financial or if you're any company, you're reporting your financial results to outside world, then outside world should be able to trust that report and able to say, yeah, this report is good, so that I can trade stocks of that company, right? So this is where the core heart of the data governance is. The same philosophy applied to why only the financial report, why not my supply chain numbers I should be able to trust, why not my patient optimization records I should be able to trust. Because people have the same issue that they are not able to trust the numbers which comes from the data team, and they want to make sure the number they can trust. So the data governance framework evolved from there. It had basically the I think three or four major component to it. If you consider, the first thing is that I should be, if I'm seeing the number at the report, I should be able to track back to its source of the information. That is the number one requirement. It's also in the compliances. It's also everybody's requirement. I should be able to track its source. That's the number one thing. Generally, we do it by data catalog and putting all the lineage into it. The second information is I should be able to trust the information which I get it in terms of the metadata definitions. The metadata of that have to be accurate and information have to be correct on that. So if I'm seeing the revenue It should be the total. It should not be the total revenue, or whether it's say annual revenue. It should be clear. The definition of that should be, the metadata definition should be clear, and it should be consistent across the company. If I say the total ARR and you understand this is MRR, it's not going to work. ARR, like annual recurring revenue, for me is different than annual revenue, right? So those are two different things. If I say annual revenue, it should not mean annual recurring revenue, right? It should mean annual revenue. So those are the difference, and people should be able to understand very clearly the definition of it and what is really means it, and what are the principles about that, right? So that is the second part of it. And the third part is the accuracy of that data. So say I said that, okay, my ARR is, or my revenue is say $100 million. So if I say $100 million, it should really mean $100 million. It should not be, oh, my one purchase order was not able to log in, so it was only showing me $98 million. No, it have to be accurate. So whatever the number I'm presenting to any information have to be accurate. So that is the second, and the third thing about that, only the legitimate people should have access to it, to any data element, right? So for example, even certain information, for example, just we're talking about financial reporting requirement, it is good information, but the day before reporting, like actual reporting to the public, this information should only be only to the CFO or CEOs. Information cannot be distributed to anybody in the company, because anybody can trade the stocks, right? So see that, and after that, everybody can have access to it. So the access of the data has to be time dependent as well as people dependent, how it should be. So there are basically the three basic policies, and the technical part is that I should be able to track that. So those are the way. So we define it at OVAL Edge this is the same principle. The way we define it is the data literacy, which is we're able to understand the definition. Data quality, where you should be able to accurately define that how the data is getting calculated properly, and data access, which with the who should have the right access policies to see the data. So that's how we define a data governance at OVAL Edge.
Awesome. And I think it makes it so much easy, like when you're dividing into like 3 to 4 pillars, and then when you're starting your data governance journey, you start with one of the pillars, and then progressively you improve, right? And when you're looking at your data governance maturity model, that's also kind of how you're evaluating. You're looking at your governance program in the lens of these pillars. Where am I with respect to data literacy? How is my data quality? How is my data access management? How is my privacy and compliance? So awesome. I do know that OVAL Edge has a very exciting blog. So I'm going to share that and ask a few follow-up questions. So let's get started. Okay. So I think our viewers can access this blog, and then they'll be able to see how the data governance maturity model is evaluated and how to measure it. So Sharad, do you want to elaborate a little bit on this? I know we talked about the pillars, but how are those pillars used in different levels?
Yeah, so data governance maturity, generally we measure at the 5 level, right? Those 5 levels are: you are unaware, you are aware about the data, like unaware, aware, defined, implemented, and optimized. So let me elaborate what we mean by that. Unaware means that I am not aware about what is happening in the organization in terms of the data governance maturity, and we do not have any processes or policies implemented, and we don't know what to do. Like, we're not even thinking about it, doing it, anything. So that is the unaware piece. We are not aware. Like a lot of organization is actually unaware about the data governance. Like a lot of startups, a lot of companies who are even though have the BI group in the place, they are unaware about the data governance program. Aware is that is something that I am aware about the data governance. We must do certain part of that implementations. We must implement. There's awareness in the company that this can create a problem if we are not sure. They are aware about the problems of which create the data governance. They understand there is a lot of reporting is happening, but they are not doing anything about it, right? So those are the aware phase of it. And then it comes to defined. Defined is that, okay, let's do something. So we create the policies and procedures to implement data governance, and we have defined it. We've kind of purchased a tool to kind of to implement this. Now it is mandatory. 20 years back, it was not mandatory to purchase the tool because now it's like you can't see of doing CRM without a CRM software. Now you can't run your sales department without having a CRM tool, or you can't run your project management without having a project management tool. Similar to that, now you can't run your data governance program without a data governance tool, right? So then you have defined it. You kind of have implemented a kind of like a tool in place. It's there, and there is a procedures has been defined. So that's kind of defined level of the data governance, which is number 3, maturity. And that comes to the number 4, which is like implemented. That means you have enforcing those policies which you put together. You can have policies whatever you want to have it, but if they're not enforced, it's of no purpose of that. So this is where that means you are start enforcing the policy, which you are implementing the procedures, and that's where the values of data governance start coming in. That level 4, and the level 5 is something that you optimize those procedures even more to get better value. So say for example, you have a data literacy program where you define your definitions and you work on your definitions to kind of create a better standard definition of it. But let's say your program is complex and you have multiple people are involved, and how do you optimize it even to have the right people involved at the right time and kind of do it better, optimize that process. So you're implementing and optimizing more and more processes. So those are the level 5 levels of data governance maturity. How it overlays what we call it progressive data governance maturity model. This is how 5 we define into that.
Got it. So you have 5 different levels based on where a particular organization's data governance journey is. And then where do you typically see the ROI of the data governance program?
That's a very good question. So ROI is a different calculation altogether than the maturity model. So ROI is something that, what is the return on investment if I will do data governance, right? So it is something that to convince the stakeholders to tell that, hey, I want to run the data governance and this will be the benefit of the data governance program. Data governance maturity model does not work about the benefit of it. It is actually focused on the implementation of it. Hey, we will implement this, and by implementing it, you will get these benefits. So it is like a tool to measure the success of the soccer team, hey, where your soccer team is. But whether you should join the soccer team or not, that is something the ROI of that soccer team. Okay, whether your kid should play soccer or not, that's it. You have to make that decision. Whether whether my child like to play on that, right? Again, my son loves soccer, that's why I'm using the analogy. But that's the main objective here is like, if not soccer, at least play some sports, right? We know that there is the value in the sports. So the ROI calculation comes around telling your executives that, hey, we must do this. While the data governance is a really internal tool for data governance organization to go and measure it, you can show to executives that where we are and we are moving, as they are convinced that they should do data governance. Do not, we have seen that many organizations use this tool to convince their stakeholders that, hey, we should do data governance because we are at level 2. No, that is not the way to convince stakeholders. Stakeholders should be convinced by ROI calculation. We will do a separate webinar on sometime next month or two to kind of calculate about how do you calculate ROI and do work further. But the maturity model is an internal assessment by your data governance professional, whether it's a chief data officer or data governance manager or director or whatever the title is. They need to do this assessment internally to assess where we are and then communicate the progress of that. Once the funding has been secured, once you know that we must do it, then in that case. So I want to put a very good emphasis. I want to make those ROI and this separate in that nature.
Got it. That makes sense. So I know we have that session upcoming. I think we'll talk about business case builder, I believe, where we'll help you calculate the ROI. So for all our viewers out there, if you're interested, please do follow us on LinkedIn so that you'll be notified of that upcoming session. And getting back to this governance model, Sharad, I know we do have a workbook here. So let's say if you want to do evaluation for your company or for your program, you can download these resources here. And then let me pull up the Excel sheet. So this is the workbook that we are offering. And then we have instructions and videos on how to actually do it. As Sharath was suggesting, we are evaluating the data governance program on all these pillars. So you have access management, quality, literacy, and IT management. And under each of these tabs, you're able to answer or state how far along you're in your governance journey in access. What is it that you're doing? What do you have? What is it that you still need to work on? And after you do the assessment, you will get a final result that will show your overall status of your governance program. So please do feel free to download this particular resource. And if you have any questions on this, this is a great time to get them clarified from our CEO. Anything else you want to add, Sharad? Because I noticed that there are many data governance maturity models out there. I know Gartner has something, IBM has something. Do you recommend one approach over another, or what's the fundamental principle here?
Yeah. So I think that as companies, there is a CMMI level is as well. There is a Gartner, there's IBM, there is obviously Overledge. We created progressive data governance maturity model. I think the objective of all remain the same. The approaches are different. We have literally created 3 different sections, kind of to divide that and kind of see the maturity in each area. Although the IBM and the Gartner's one is all around only one unidimensional. We have like 3 dimension to it, but they are unidimensional maturity model. But they do have questions around all 3 areas. They do have questions around all 3 areas, but you measure the unidimensional. We kind of have given a little bit more flavor so that you can measure that where the literacy program is going, where quality program is doing, where access management program is going. And based on that, you measure each 3 program success, as well as the scope of the program. You might do the literacy program only in marketing group, or maybe the sales group, or maybe maybe your supply chain group, wherever you think is the right area, you implement that and you move further, right? While these programs are designed basically top down, you do it at organization level, and then you do it at the department level. We have progressive, we have department level, and then you go to the department, you learn from that, and then you go organization. So that is the fundamental difference between other maturity model and Overledge, because we are kind of like, because what we have seen in our implementation journey is maximum people are starting the data governance by a department, by a group, and then moving further ahead in this one. While this one is a more like a bookish approach to do it at the organization, why write the policy and do it further. But it's very, very difficult to implement those ones because it's top down. It's good that you can define the policies at the organization level, but it's very, very difficult when you define the policy at the organization level, which cannot be implemented, for example. Now, what we are trying to work here is define the policies or basically most time procedures in a manner which easily and effectively implementable, right? It's come down to, I generally take the analogy of like different government systems, right? Like you have a US government and you have Syria, right? The Syria also have a constitution. They also have everything, right? US have a constitution and this one. But here we go very deliberate process between this and kind of discuss and debate, and then we find the laws. But when the law becomes, we make sure that funding is available for that, and then we implement this. The laws and the deliberation process are there so that laws can be implemented. Yes, there are a lot of problems are there. I'm not saying this is a perfect system, but this is way better than probably the Syria have, or probably North Korea have, or some other countries have, because you can see the progress of the country just because of setting the right procedures, which is implementable. You can have any policy, but which is not implementable is not going to work. That's where the data governance maturity model is also plays very important role, that you measure it and then kind of like go progressively in this one. So that is the main difference between overledge maturity model, overledge progressive maturity model versus say Gartner or IBM, because again, it's very top down, and it's also designed 20 years ago, most of them. Or 15 years ago. It's when the tools were not available, the automation was not available, the AI was not available. At that time, it was designed in a different mindset altogether. Now things have been moved around, and I don't think they are even they have changed this game to do different things. But I don't think they're focusing that much on the maturity model anymore.
Yeah, definitely that makes sense, because I have had many discovery calls where people or prospects, they come and they're like, hey, we did this maturity model and this is where we are at, and then we are able to assist them, this is what you need to do, and this is how Overledge can help you based on where you are at. So definitely, if you look at other maturity models, even though they are very academic, because Overledge has an end-to-end data governance tool and platform, right? So we are also providing the technology to actually help you implement this governance program and progress through your maturity model. And I do know that we have a lot of success metrics, dashboards within Overledge to really help you track the progress. So the Excel sheet that that I just shared, it's more about like an assessment. But after you start implementing, you can you have data quality dashboards and so much more to truly help you get a gauge of your journey. Yeah, so I have another.
I would like to elaborate a little bit more into that, like the phase, as
Yes,
you
please.
mentioned, the success metrics and everything. That is comes after level 3, when you have a tool in place and then you can measure automatically. But before 2, 3, how would you measure? When you don't have anything in place, right? That is where the survey mechanism is the only possible mechanism where you can ask questions people, and basically that is what the spreadsheet is. It's a predefined questions for you to give it to your people, and you can get it. And most of the time, the result would be somewhere between 2 and 3, because you're using survey to do it. If you are level 4, then probably the answer is that probably you're using Overledge to measure the further progress of that, right? Or if your tool does not have that offering to do, I understand the success metrics and something, that means you're not doing data governance right to start with, because they don't understand how to measure the success of the program. Like, you should be, if you're establishing procedures, you're establishing processes, you should be able to measure the success of that. You should be able to measure where are you going with it. So that's the part of the very important, that why the survey is the only mechanism. There may be some more, but I'm not aware of any other mechanism other than survey that you can find to get answers to assess where you are at level, right? But after level 3, you have multiple tools to kind of measure. You have the process in place, and you can easily figure out where the maturity level you are in the data governance.
So I want to take a step back and start from a customer's perspective. So they may have a data governance program in place, or they may just are looking to get started, and then they are doing this assessment. They go through this entire module, and then now they understand where they are at. What do you suggest are the next steps?
Okay, so next steps is it comes down to is the funding has been approved for data governance program or not, right? If you're because most of the companies and the data governance professionals are doing the assessment to understand where they are, and then they are saying, okay, hey, this is where we are, and give us the funding for the data governance program. So the next step is always to get ready for the funding. That's if you are doing the data governance maturity model or whatever. So if the funding is approved, then in that case, you start, after measuring, you start writing at the level where you are. They say most probably if you are starting it, that means you are level 2, you start with it. Then in order to define 3, you have to start defining the procedures and the policies, and you start implementing the tool to do the data governance, right? So the 2 part, and you can do both parallelly. The one part is defining all the standard procedures and policies, and the second is buy the tool and start implementing it. Start building the data catalog, putting this together so that you can implement those policies. You're defining it. Now, it is at this point of time, defining is also difficult. What should it define? Because I implemented this, for example, CRM solution. I asked HubSpot, who's our partner in this one. I said, hey, what is your best practices? Give me the best practices so that I can implement it, because you have worked with various customers and figured out this. And they give us the best practice. We implemented it. Very happy with that because they are the standard program. So right now, rather than reinventing the wheel and figure out, you can join our academy to learn best practices. That how should you run the literacy program? How should you run data quality program? How should you run access program? And start implementing and use this procedure. And then obviously you have to see those policies and procedure. Can I put it in place or not? So you put it on place, and that basically you have a templatized policies and procedures. You can start saying, okay, this is what we are going to implement. You can start communicating to them, and then start implementing it further. So those are the next steps. Again, it's 2 dimensions. And one is if you don't have funding, go for funding. Start building the business case, start building the ROI, and go there. And if you already have the funding, then start implementing it by buying the tool and buying and implementing the tool at the one stream, and then start establishing the procedure and policies at the one stream. And they both can go in parallel.
Got it. So get funding, or if you have funding, start with the procedures and policies, right? And how do you get started with procedures and policies, especially if you're just new to data governance? Like, do you have any recommendations on that?
We build Oval Edge Academy for especially the same purpose, which give you this is Data Governance 101 chapter in that, which will help you to understand what the different data governance programs are, how do you define the best practices, and how do you implement the best practices. So those are the easy way to start doing it. Otherwise, you can do the research and also come up with the same conclusion. The easy part of the Data Governance Academy, what we have done it is that we kind of work as hundreds of customers, so we know what their pain points are, and we have implemented to them. So kind of we know the best practices, which is working as easy to implement comparative to theoretical level, which was designed 20 years ago, and you do not want to continue the 20-year-old methodologies, and you want to work with the newer way, which is easy and uses tools for a lot of automation part of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know, like academy.ovaledge.com, we have a lot of resources and templates and just general data governance help to help you get started. And we do have very good questions from Deborah. Most organizations already have pieces and parts already in place. From your experience, what is the area you can get the most value? Which component of data governance, given limited funds, yields the biggest ROI for organizations that have DG standards and disparate tools? That's a very good question.
It's a very good question. I think that, again, based on my limited or understanding that we can with this dispersed tool and something, establishing access policies with the privacy programming control gives you a very good ROI in terms of like what do you do it and in implementing it. It's because it gives a lot of people hands to the data and it creates the demand for literacy and quality further, because people have access to the data now, and now suddenly they're like, oh, I need a high quality. So it creates the demand for it. While if you work on data literacy first, then yes, people are getting a right quality, but people don't even have access to it. So that is the one part I've learned is that execute the access program first if you have a limited budget with the limit. So if you have that's what the progressive is. You start with one program and go further. If you already have access in place, then focus on literacy. If you have literacy in place, then focus on quality. And then department by department, area by area, whatever the companies are, and then go program by program. Do not do one department, everything big bang, if you implement it, and then, or do data access for the organization wide. You have to gradually improve into it. to the within the organization. That what works well, because you will learn lesson learned within the company, within the every company have its own organization, own culture. What do you adopt to it? It's very, very difficult to kind of not have the feedback from your own thing. That is why a program, a department, and establish that, and then move to another department using lesson learned from it, move that further, move that further. That's a best way to implement this.
Yep, that makes total sense. And when you talk about data access management, I do realize that it's providing metadata access to all the users so that now everyone has a say in the organization, right? You don't need to give them access to the data, for compliance reasons, but just the metadata so that everyone can collaborate, communicate on the data quality, certification, and then Overledge has a lot of workflows to manage all those. So I hope that answers your question, Deborah. Start with access piece, go with a progressive journey. And I do have another very good question. So this is, how do you engage stakeholders across different business units and departments in data governance journey?
That's again is a very good question. The only way to engage is by forcefully. Again, access management program is a easy way that you can say, hey, all the data is available in the data catalog. You go and search and ask for access. That creates the engagement model, but it's only create the engagement when I need something. It doesn't create the engagement when a data governance manager needs something, right? So the data governance is about establishing the procedures and policies about a specific objective and get this going. For example, you are running a data literacy program, and in data literacy program, you are trying to find out the different definition of the customer lifetime value you have. So you have for example, data catalog. You find that customer lifetime value. Then you say that, okay, these are the different definitions we have from the data catalog. Now you reach out to various stakeholders of that specific, those who are consuming the customer lifetime value, understand from them what are the definitions they have it, and then run a committee around that, and then standardize it, and then implement it. So as these people are involved in the discussion of it, they are more easy to consume, not the customer lifetime value, but the total revenue and other thing as well. So because they've been involved in the discussion. So first you force them to have their input into the discussion, and then you say, hey, this is the other value you will get. So it's a give and take. Again, we are human, and data governance is about human. It's about psychology. So in order to implement it, you cannot have here is everything. Here is a tool. Go and go. Everything is good. It's not going to work that way. You have to have a very progressive model to kind of go and invite them on a one purpose. They get this work done, and then you give them more. That's the way it works really well.
Got it. Thank you so much, Aditi, for the question. And there's a very similar question from Aravind. Let me just post here. What's in it for me? That's a quintessential question. Like, why do I care? So how do you go about that, Sharad? Because I have worked with several customers and data stewards. It's very hard to sometimes convince, right? Because they don't see the value, especially when you are in the unaware stage of your governance maturity. And they're like, why should I put in all the effort? Why should I curate all these things? It's always a hard conversation. So do you have any suggestions there?
I think it's a very, very genuine question, and it's very relevant to successfully implement data governance, right? So let me, like most people do not understand the value of the data governance is, right? People think the value of the data governance lies around productivity or compliances, right? So productivity is around, like, at least you will get some productivity of your data analyst team. So people get quick access to the data, they can get quick reporting. It's a value, right? But the productivity value is generally offset by the investment you make into it, right? So you make $1 million investment into data governance program, you make, say, $2 million productivity, but you will not get $100 million productivity by investing $1 million, right? So it's a tangible return. You can still measure it, because you can measure the certain thing like how easy it is to get to access, how easy it is to maintain the quality of the data. You can measure the level of trust in the organization. That way you can calculate that the productive that aspect for it. The benefits is intangible benefits which you get from data governance program. Other than compliance, the major benefit you get is decision making of the business. Business can actually take effective decisions if they are doing it. So, for example, if you are trading a risk, if you are a bank, what does you do? The bank people buy securities to buy, various investments. They buy things, right? They look at those numbers. What if the number is wrong? And the number is a little bit wrong, they will able to buy less security. So people at the data team, generally they focus around, oh, this is the data quality issue. They do not understand what the decisions the business executives are taking from that. We have many examples where the decision went wrong, and basically it basically collapses sometimes it collapses the company. For example, let's say Twitter has been bought by a wrong assumption that the fraud rate is 5%, because their metadata definition was saying it's a fraud rate. But when they'll ask for the definition, they said that, oh, we surveyed 100 people and only found 5 fraud. Assumption was incorrect at the beginning, and then it's a billions of dollar trade was happened on that. But again, there was a different reason why they bought it. But there was a data governance component was involved in that. So every people do not. That's what the data governance leader should do, to really convince the intangible benefit of data governance program to the business, that these are you can actually make the decision. I see that there is no problem seeing people convincing, hey, I want to do customer 360. I want to do the member service improvement. I want to do the patient analysis. I want to do the patient. So these benefit program do have benefit, and you can foresee the benefit, but these benefit cannot never be. You cannot optimize your supply chain if you cannot make the decision around it, right? Supply chain, for example, you want to optimize your supply chain. It's a complex program where every business analyst who is working on supply chain is taking quite a bit decisions to understand that, okay, should I route this area or should I route this route to this way? How should I design this? So you're taking a lot of analysis, a lot of reports, and making decisions on it to design your supply chain, future supply chain, right? In order to do this, these decisions are going to define the next level of requirement. If you cannot trust this decision, your whole supply chain is not going to work as effective as Amazon supply chain is, for example, right? That is what ability to communicate this is very important. And now it comes down to the one point is ability to communicate so that you get executive buy-in. And then it comes to what's for me, what's for data steward to contribute towards it, right? And that comes down to be, hey, because every data steward, you do not choose the data steward that, hey, you want to, this is Gautam Gali, you want to become data steward. No. Are you consuming some reports already? Are you consuming some data element? Are you willing to become data steward for this? So that I will give you some part of this, so that the data you will get is very authentic, right? So the supply chain people should become the data steward for the supply chain, because it is ultimately their benefit, because they are getting the genuine, authentic data about it. But they need to coordinate not only supply chain, but they need to go with the warehousing, they need to coordinate with manufacturing, everywhere, to make sure that this the data which they are getting is genuine. So ability for data governance manager and the CDO to talk business language, that is the skill of the data governance program is needed to really implement what's for me. Is this case, and it's not that difficult if you know the business and you can talk their language to become the part of the data governance program. We have seen many successful implementation where our strategies involved to kind of give them the hey, use this method to communicate to your business stakeholder, and that where you are getting the business buy-in into the data governance program.
Yep. Thank you, Sharad. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Aravind, for the question. I know in our upcoming session, we'll discuss a lot on this business case builder and how do you talk about ROI and how do you actually influence various stakeholders. So do follow us. We have another question, Sharad. This is, would you suggest that policy as code is an effective way to address governance, or does it take too long to establish?
These are the new concept, policy as a code, for the newer thing which you are doing it, right? So for example, you can put a business definition. You can put a formula to this and say, hey, always use this particular piece of code if you are using this formula, which is very, very good to enforce that change. Again, but you need to buy these tools which can enforce these changes. You need to have the ETL tools and the reporting tools which can follow these procedures. If you are using an old legacy tool, may not be able to work. So those things are good concepts to start with, but have not seen a very good success yet at the scale where the data governance have seen the success, right? But at that scale, I'm saying there is some product has been there and they're successful as this one, but not at the scale where, like, when I say the success, like agile methodology has become really, really successful compared to the waterfall in the software development lifecycle, right? So that is what I call it as a success in terms of like use this. But it's a very good concept. It works in the downstream level, but you have really, really defined the procedure and you have all the tools of that can follow this procedure. Otherwise, it's again on the book. You can define it. Implementation becomes difficult if you do not have the right tools.
Got it. There's another question from Darcy. Where do you think which organizations will own or belong the DG program within the enterprise that is most effective?
So it definitely comes from the business side. And again, but there are a lot of businesses. So the first thing is the data governance should not be owned by data team. Data team are the custodians of the data. Data team can help in establishing the tool. They can help kind of oversee the program, but they should not be the data steward. They should not be, no, that is the part of the business side. Now the thing is that within the business, there are multiple variety of business, right? So if you are a bank, maybe the risk assessment or the compliance team or which team should own this. Again, that's generally the chief data officer role is, one of the role of the chief data officer is to do the analytics and integration part of it. And another one is to manage the data governance program. But start going data governance manager who is running this, but it's come from one of the business side, lead the program and do more with the business side of it. It have to be within the business side, maybe a little bit on the compliance if you are in financial industry, financial industry compliance. But if you are in healthcare, if you are in say tech industry, then compliance is not that much important. But where the business side is definitely is more important there in that area.
Got it. Makes sense. I know we talked a lot about data governance and maturity. I just wanted to let our viewers know that if you have any questions or like need help with the assessment, you can always schedule a session with one of our solutions engineers. We are more than happy to walk you through the process and help you get started. So another question, Sharad, this is from Srinivas. It's how much importance does stewardship play?
This like heart and core of the data governance program, right?
Yep.
They do every part of the data stewards are the you cannot have data governance program without data stewards. You can call them something else, that's a different case, but data stewards or data owners or data whatever you call them, again, some people call them the same thing, some people different thing, some people call, but there is a specific steward is the one who manages all the metadata, keep track of it, make sure that the data at that particular place is high quality, ensure that it's the right definitions are there based on the program you are doing it. So it's the heart and soul of the data governance program. It's like running a CRM department and say, hey, what kind of account executive plays a role on a CRM group, or running a project management and say, hey, what is the kind of a role of a developer in the PM program? That's what the data stewards are. Data stewards are heart and soul of data governance program. If you don't have data stewards, you don't have data governance program in place. Yeah, like this, these are the heart and soul of the data governance program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have a lot of roles and responsibilities defined in Oval Edge to really allow them to perform various governance activities and track them.
So those roles can be different, like owner, stewards, custodian, that can be different. But when we come about data stewardship, that means we are talking about, and that's I want to define that. That means we are talking about giving proper responsibility about a specific task to do in that area to business stakeholders, or sometime to the data team stakeholders. We're giving a specific task to do certain thing, right? That's what the word data stewardship is defined in my dictionary, or in our dictionary. A lot of people understand the same way. It's not only data stewards in general. That's why I said the name can be different. Name can be, some people can owners, some people. That's the term data stewardship. I want to define that.
Got it. So again, I think we are getting close to the end of the session, and I just want to quickly summarize, and Sharad, please feel free to pitch in. So we looked at data governance maturity. From what I understand is that it will really help you track the progress of your data governance journey, and then not necessarily helpful with ROI calculation or getting leadership buy-in, but definitely will help you understand where you are, so that after you are doing the assessment, you can request budget, and for that you can also check out our business case builder to how to calculate ROI, and also you can start your progressive data governance journey, where you're starting with something as simple as access management, where you're giving access to all the metadata, and slowly you're developing business glossary, data quality, and jumping into other modules. So anything else you want to add, Sharad, before we conclude?
You have summarized it beautifully, Gautam, and thank you for that. And I think I really enjoyed this session, and it was amazing.
Awesome.
And very good question. It's like I was I'm really honored that that the questions is very deep, and we are really getting into the details here. So amazing questions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the questions. Like you see, we get really excited about questions and engagement. And then feel free to, follow us on LinkedIn, because we have many more exciting sessions lined up. And then you can also schedule a free session with our solutions engineers if you want to learn more about the assessment. And so we'll wrap it up for now. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and love to be part of other sessions as well. Thank you.